A very good morning, dear students. Hope you all are fine. Dear students, due to certain inconvenience, I was unable to give you explanation video of the first chapter of your English CV book. So today I am going to explain the first chapter. Dear students, before we start, let's pray for God's grace on each one of us with a Sanskrit prayer. Om Asatoma Satkamaya Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya Mritturma Amritangamaya Om Santi Santi Santi. So, students, please open your book at page number 5, chapter 1. The Selfish Giant. So, before we start, at first we must know the meaning of these words. What is the meaning of selfish? Selfish means it's a person who is very much who thinks about himself alone. He thinks only for his own gain, own profit. He cannot think of anybody else's benefit, anybody else's happiness, anybody else's profit, gain. That type of person is called selfish. And giant means it's an imaginary human form of superhuman size. There is no existence of physical existence of giant. We can only imagine. He is a character who is human in form, and whose size is like superhuman, very huge, very large body. And next, we must know about the author before we go through the chapter. The author of this chapter is, as is given in the first page, is Oscar Wilde. You can read yourself. You can learn about him more from, net or some other books also. Here a few lines only given about him. Oscar Wilde, who was born in 1854 and died in 1900. He was a prolific Irish author who wrote plays, fiction, essays, epigrams and poetry. And he also wrote moral stories for children. So this chapter, The Selfish Giant, was part of his collection. The title of the book is The Happy Prince and the Other Tales, which published in 1888. He graduated from Oxford University and was one of the most popular playwrights of his time. So now, dear students, start the chapter. Look at the first few lines of the chapter. The Selfish Giant is a short story about a giant who lives alone in his castle, which has a beautiful garden. So what is the meaning of the castle? Castle means large building. So this giant who lived in his own beautiful castle, which has a beautiful garden. In that castle there is a beautiful garden. He is selfish and dislikes children. So what was his peculiarity? That he did not like children. He was not only selfish, and at the same time he did not like children at all. But when Spring refuses to visit his garden, he learns to appreciate children and grows to love them immensely. So this is what you are going to get in the chapter, why Spring refuses to visit his garden and why finally he started appreciating children. You will know when we go through the chapter in the later part of the chapter. Every afternoon, as they were coming from school, the children used to go and play in the giant's garden. So when the children came back, returned from their school, before going home, they always entered into the giant's garden and they played for a while. It was a large, lovely garden with soft green grass. You can imagine, you can have a idea of the beauty of this garden. It was full of soft green grasses. It was a lovely garden. Here and there over the grass stood beautiful flowers like stars, and there were 12 peach trees that in the springtime broke out into delicate blossoms of pink and pearl. During springtime, spring season, what happens in those peach trees, some delicate flowers appears, and the color of which is pink and pearl. And during the autumn, what happens, you see, bore rich fruits. So during spring, flowers appeared, and during autumn, the trees, the peach trees, bore rich fruits. The birds sat on the trees and sang so sweetly that the children used to stop their games to listen to them. To his castle, one day he saw the children playing in the garden. "What are you doing here?" he cried in a very gruff voice. Gruff means, you see, rough. And the children ran away. His voice was so rough that the children, they got scared. They ran away from the place. "My own garden is my own garden," said the giant. So he was in a very rough voice, rude voice, harsh voice. He said that my garden is only for me only. Since he was very selfish. He cannot think of anybody else, any children playing in his garden. So he told that my garden is mine only. I will allow nobody to play in it but myself. So he spoke to himself that he will not allow anyone to enter. So he built a high wall all around it and put up a notice board. So he displayed a notice board also. Not only what did he do? Afterwards he built a very huge wall so that no one can enter into his garden. And also he put a notice board. In that notice board, what was written? He wrote that trespassers will be prosecuted. So what is trespassers? Means entering anyone. If anyone enters, then what will happen? Prosecuted means legal punishment. He will be punished legally. So it was what? Displayed in the gate. So he was a very selfish giant. From this line again, repetition of his characters. How was he? We have already learned what type of person, what type of giant he was. He was a very selfish giant. The poor children now had nowhere to play, since he displayed or he put up a notice board that if anyone enters into his garden will be punished. Then the children, they had no other place, nowhere to play. They tried to play on the road, since they were in the habit of playing, and the children like to play, So they tried to play in the road, but the road was very dusty and full of hard stones, and they did not like it. So it was not easy to play in the road. You can imagine, you can understand. It is not safe also, isn't it? They used to wander around the turn the page, wall when their lessons were over, and talk about the beautiful garden inside. So since they are not allowed to enter, so they were loitering. They used to loiter, roam around near the high walls, and they were talking. They talked about the beauty of the garden inside. How happy we are there, they said to each other. They spoke to each other that yes, so beautiful it is there inside, but we are not allowed to be there in. And they appreciated the beauty of the garden, even though they were not allowed to coincide. So, dear students, let me stop here today. I'll continue the later part of the chapter in the next class. Thank you.